We'll see how the lighting is.
Oh, it's not turned around. That's a problem because, listen, they're going to see the wrong thing. Hi, guys! We are here, and once again, we get to start with authenticity, which means the video was facing the stand. I am here today for Women of Worth Wednesday, and I am so grateful for High Five Live and their willingness to allow this show to happen every week. I am so grateful today to be with my friend Jen. Hi. And her beauty and her light. I can't wait to share a little bit more with you about her journey. But before we get started, would you please post where you're watching from, and so that we can kind of connect with you and know that this is a personal relationship building show that we have every week. This is Women of Worth Wednesday, hosted by High Five Live. And today we are ready for a treat. Jen and I have been praying, pondering, talking, and preparing for today for a couple of weeks. And we're going to ask, we just had a prayer before we came on, and I do that every time that we start this. But we need extra prayers today because we're going to talk about some things that may be uncomfortable or emotional and trigger some people. And we know that this is important, and it's important that we have this conversation because it's going to lead to some healing. And our intention, as we've talked, is that it's an honest conversation, but that you leave this video today with tools.
Yes.
Because we don't want to just have a conversation and unearth everything and then say goodbye to all of you. We really want people to leave today knowing that they know how to kind of approach relationships in a different way and open their hearts to some healing. And that requires risk and vulnerability. And every time we do that, it can be messy. And so I just want to ask for those prayers and thoughts today, because today is an important conversation that we hope you will share this video and tag people that you know need to have this conversation in their own lives. I approached Jen a couple of weeks ago. Has it been over a month or so?
Yeah, pretty close.
And I had this on my heart that it was time to have a conversation about faith change. And I don't know if there's other words to call it, but that's kind of what I've decided to call it, where I don't care if you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, if you're Catholic, if you're Mormon, if you are Baptist, whatever your religious affiliation. What we want to talk about today is, what do you do when a friend or a family member who once identified with the same religion that you identify with decides to leave that religion, and either leave religion in general or identify with a new faith? And what happens in the relationship? And how do we maneuver kind of the uncomfortable phases that come up when someone makes a decision to leave? And I think on both sides. So we want to validate, but we also want to give tools. So before we kind of dig in deep, I want Jen to kind of share. She's a fabulous vocalist, and the way that we met, has it been a year?
Yeah.
So we were both invited to present at an event, and it was a corporate event. It wasn't a religious-based event, but the person that organized this event is faith-based, and she's bold and courageous. Yeah. Sheree Burton, if you're out there.
Hi, Sheree!
She brought us together.
We love you!
And honestly, then we started to realize how many times we almost met before that event.
We have so many mutual friends.
Yes, we really
do. So many connections.
Yes.
So many times we could have met.
That we didn't. I presented kind of the closing message, and then Jen really kept the closing message going with music, and she is brilliant at that. And she changed my heart. That room was amazing because it was a melting pot of sexual orientation, faith, ethnicity. I'm not saying that word. I'm a little jet lagged, by the way, so I think I'm...
Where did you just get back from?
I just got back from the Middle East, so I am very much into a multicultural mindset, but I keep saying my face is in the Middle East, my body's in Utah, so I'm a little jet lagged. And that experience was such a beautiful example to me of how much we have in the same. Not just Jen and I, but as human beings. We have more the same than we have different. Totally. But we were talking about how many weapons are out there right now to divide us politically, spiritually, mentally, demographically, ethnically. And we're today going to bring some of those weapons down, which means the adversary was really ticked yesterday, and both of us kind of had our tails kicked. We knew what was going on today. So Jen, would you kind of share your faith journey, where you came from, what brought you into the Mormon faith, and then maybe out of the Mormon faith a little bit, and then we'll dig into some solutions.
So I grew up in a non-denominational Christian household where we moved around a lot, and so we experienced a lot of different types of sects of Christianity.
Yes.
So Evangelical Free, Presbyterian, Baptist, Methodist, Calvary Chapel. So every time we would move, we would go to a different type of church, wherever my parents felt like they resonated with the church and wherever they felt like they were being called. So I was in that faith tradition until I was about 22 years old, and then I got baptized into the LDS church. And there were things about the Mormon faith that I found a lot of comfort in, like in the word of wisdom. I loved that there was some black and white with
A list.
yeah, there were some things that were really defined
Yes.
as opposed to kind of a everything in moderation sort of belief. And
To pause right
yes.
there, did you find that was a blessing for you to have all these different childhood religious experiences? Has
Totally.
that enriched you?
Oh yes.
So I grew up in California, and all of my non-Mormon friends that watch this video are always, I'm the token Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the same experience because of where I grew up. I was able to visit other churches, and I think you do create an awareness, an
Totally.
expansive awareness when you
I'm
have
so
a
glad
childhood
for it.
like that. Yeah.
It created a lot of adaptability, which as a singer and a speaker has been really important.
Nice. Yeah.
Because then I can travel and I can just really blend in quickly wherever
Yes.
I am and feel like I can belong there. I did experience also as a teenager being the only non-Mormon in a situation that I attended a camp for years, and I was the only person who was not a member of
Interesting.
the LDS church, and made soul deep, lifelong types of friendships there. I've had those friends for years.
And when you made the decision to join the LDS Faith,
Mm-hmm.
you also experienced some struggle in, yes. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yes. So I was in college at the time at a Free Methodist school, and I was getting ready to go on a tour for the summer with these girls that I'd sung with that are near and dear to my heart, and we've been singing together for 3 years. And the school administration found out through my father that he was against me being LDS. I told my parents that I had gotten baptized, and they were really upset. And so the administration found out that I had joined the Mormon church, and they said, we are not going to allow you to be in the group anymore. And so being excluded from that meant that I lost my on-campus housing, my job, my scholarship. So within 24 hours, I was homeless, jobless, didn't even have the long-distance connection on my phone any longer.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's a big change.
Huge change. And so a couple members of the local branch presidency came to my dorm room. We packed it up in an hour. I moved out. I slept on an air mattress in the home of one of the branch presidency members. And then one of my best friends from camp messaged me and said, I bought you a plane ticket to Utah.
Wow.
We need to get you out of there. We need to have you be in a place where there is support.
Support.
And I said, how am I going to get from here to Colorado and then fly from Colorado to Utah when I have no money, financial support's been cut off, scholarship, job, everything cut off. So the branch presidency gave me a bus ticket pass, and I took a bus from East St. Louis to Colorado, went from Colorado to Utah, and when I got here I had $8 in my pocket, and that was
Wow.
it.
So I think that says a lot about who you are just as a strength, the fortitude within you at that
my
age
goodness.
to make that big of a change.
It was terrifying.
Is terrifying.
It
And
was
I think it says a
beyond,
lot about your
it
strength.
was beyond scary. I felt like I was kind of hurling myself off a cliff, or like Indiana Jones in
Yeah.
The Last Crusade when he takes that walk out, doesn't know that there's solid footing underneath him until he sprinkles the dust on the way back. It felt like that.
I want to pick that theme back up. I feel like it probably revisited again later on. So then you join the church
Yep.
and you meet your husband.
So I got married a year after getting baptized into the LDS church, into a very strong LDS family.
Yeah.
That had like 5
Very
generations
traditional,
deep of pioneer heritage and the whole thing. And a few years into being married, I was married for 11 years, had 3 children.
Beautiful
and
children. by
Gorgeous
the way.
kids. Yeah, I love my kids. And probably about 6 or 7 years into being married and being a married Mormon woman, I was really, really missing a lot of things from my Christian tradition, including the music. I love worship music, and I always kind of grew up in churches that had bands and had the praise Jesus kind of worship, and I really
Missed
missed
that.
that.
Yeah.
I really missed it, and I was actively involved in the LDS community music-wise as
world.
well. I had performed on EFY
Yeah.
and some other really big albums that were heard by people everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
I had people writing to me from all over the world. Hi, I heard you on such and such.
Yes.
I saw this on YouTube or whatever. And so it was
there
this
is a
juxtaposition.
big Mormon music
they have their
industry.
own music
Yes.
industry.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think this is important to note that for those that are converting to any faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you leave whatever you came from,
Mm-hmm.
you're leaving your memories, your culture, your bond.
So many things.
And you felt in many ways this gap.
I did.
Of what you walked away from. And so you went to your husband at the time and said, these are my concerns and feelings. And at that point, you became a multi-faith.
We did. Yes. I went to my husband, and I also went to the entire family and sat everybody down and said, this is how I'm feeling. I really want to go back to Christian church.
Which is a tool. I hope people take that. I think that was really wise to say, we're going to have a conversation with the grandmas and the uncles and the aunts and the cousins.
Yeah,
because
we did everything at once.
Yeah,
so
at
that
one
there,
time.
So that there wasn't any
texting,
go-between.
Yeah. Like,
none of
hey,
that.
did you hear Jen is like wanting to sing in the gospel church?
Yeah.
And blah, 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 blah. I think that's a very proactive tool that people can...
And you know, I actually did a vision journal entry before that conversation with exactly how I wanted it to go.
Oh, I love that.
So I wrote it in the present tense. I wrote, we all are calmly having this conversation. Like I remember this now because I had forgotten that I did that. But I wrote down an entire journal entry as though it was happening in the present.
Which I say, some people call that faith vision, vision boards and things like that. I agree, that's what it is. But to me, that is speaking in faith. That is saying,
I was speaking faith over the whole thing. I was
saying,
speaking life over the conversation.
Yes, you're like, in gratitude,
over the
this
people.
is going to go well. In
Yes.
gratitude, Heavenly Father, thank you for blessing God this conversation. I think that's a great takeaway.
Because I didn't want there to be a doctrine bash. It wasn't about this is the wrongness of this and this is the rightness of this and we have to play the right and wrong game. It was with hope to keep relationships intact.
Which is a key.
Yes.
Which is a thing
and
we're
to
going to
honor
visit.
each other.
And how did it go?
It actually went exactly as I mapped out.
I love that. Doesn't
Almost
that give help?
to the T. Like there were things that I said out loud that I had written about a little bit before, and it just manifested just like and I really felt like I took my Savior with me into that conversation, and I asked to be spoken through with the Holy Spirit and to be able to continue to be loving in the moment and not to have to go into any kind of Bible bashing or anything like that. That was not the intent.
So maybe this is a good time to say one of the takeaways we wanted to share is focus more on the relationship than in the religion.
Yes.
And also focus more on this isn't a right or a wrong thing.
Yeah.
This is what decision I'm making, and I'm not making it because you're so wrong.
No.
And I'm so right.
Nope.
Try to find some relationship-based conversations instead of about a right or wrong.
Yeah.
A doctrinal conversation can happen if the parties decide they want to have that conversation. But I found that doesn't change a lot of minds.
And if you're trying to change somebody's mind, it's worth it to look inside yourself and say, what am I afraid of?
Yes.
What am I fearing that is causing this need to control or need to shift a perception? And oftentimes, I found that when people are really defensive, it's because they have fear underneath it. And they're wondering, like, if you choose not to believe, does it mean that I shouldn't either?
Okay, we're going to pause. Can I just get an amen for that?
Amen.
Because that is the truth. And I don't know anyone in any religion that is like, okay, I'm 100% cool with my faith.
Yeah.
Brene Brown gave a recent address in her church, the Episcopalian church. And she said, if I was to discuss, like, if I was in a conversation about my relationship with God, we're healthy, we're dating, we're in love, we're madly in love. But if you want to have a conversation with a therapist about my relationship with the church, that's complicated.
It is
right?
complicated.
It is complicated. And so
Because you've got a lot of humans with human limitations.
yes, and religions are always evolving, and people and how they live their faith is evolving. I mean, I just literally just traveled to the Middle East, and I saw evidences of all variations of how someone would externally dress as a Muslim, right? Yeah. And I kept asking, because I asked questions, and I kept asking, like, well, why is that woman deciding to cover her face versus that woman not? And I couldn't get a real clear answer, because really, everyone was in their own faith journey.
It's also personal.
Yes.
And the reasons that somebody chooses to either continue on in a faith or to leave a faith a lot of the times it doesn't even have to do with a doctrinal thing as much as it does with experiences.
Okay. And that's, we want to validate that, because there are people on both sides within the Mormon church, the Catholic church, that have maybe experienced pain.
Oh, sure.
Or their faith questions or faith crisis has led them to a place where, can you share that what it's like to make that decision? And that we were talking off air about, it's not some like, oh, I think I'll go to McDonald's today, or I think I'll go get pizza today, right?
It's not a flippant choice. Yes. I mean, even when I chose to become a Mormon, it was a 9-year process.
Wow.
Of investigating. I took the missionary discussions 3 times.
Love it.
It was a long process.
She's a thinker. She's
I am a thinker.
Faith, passionate thinker. Which is why we love each other,
exactly.
Right?
So it was a long process to go in, and it was about the same amount of time to come out.
Interesting.
It was about an equal amount of time spent journeying in and journeying out.
Share with our viewers what you shared with me, that sometimes people are doing in the background when they've kind of come to that decision. They've probably done what to make that decision?
Oh, lots of journaling, meditating, prayer, research. And also possibly having experiences that were not within the faith tradition that they were currently in.
Yes.
But things that might have been explored to say, okay, I really need to see what it feels like to be over here and to be within this community or within this fellowship, and compare and contrast, so that it's not just making a really quick decision like this and just saying, okay,
or even
that's
counseling. We talked about professional counseling. Because
going to therapy.
This is a heavy decision.
It's a huge decision.
It's
a life-changing decision.
Yeah, I mean, if you are of the Jewish faith, so much of your family traditions are around your faith.
Yeah.
Mormons, there are so many family gatherings that are around certain ordinances, blessings, baptisms, mission farewells, weddings, right?
Yeah, totally.
I think there is an understanding sometimes that, like, you know, okay, you just decided this because you got offended. You were mentioning that,
right?
And that doesn't validate what people are really experiencing. No. People are complex, and so if they're making a decision that they know is going to affect their tradition and their family gatherings,
and sometimes people stay because of that decision.
Exactly.
They may be on the inside
struggling,
feeling like this does not feel light for me anymore. This doesn't resonate with me anymore, but they stay because of the family tradition.
Well, and I've shared on past Women of Worth videos, that's why I think whatever faith you affiliate with, it has to be okay to ask questions within your faith. Yeah. If we're not asking questions on Sunday at church, then I don't know what we're doing. Because, I mean, it's nice to shower and put on a dress, but my family's always like, Mom, you look so awesome today. I'm like, oh, be quiet, just because I got dressed today, right? Or
dry shampoo.
Right. If we're not showing up to say, this is my faith question, and can we get a little more comfortable around that?
Yeah.
So that people feel like they have a place to explore that. It should be in our churches.
Yeah.
Whatever the church is, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this. There's not a formal LDS ostracizing campaign, right?
Right.
But I think this conversation we're having doesn't happen very often.
No.
And it doesn't happen on a public forum.
No.
So when a family all of a sudden has this happening within their families, right? I know there are other religions that there are literally teachings of banishment. Like, you've walked away from our faith, you are now dead to us. And I'm grateful that that's not taught from the pulpits of my church, but that doesn't mean, culturally speaking, we don't show up that way sometimes.
Yeah.
I've had family members and friends leave the LDS faith. I tend to be a person that wants to keep a relationship over anything else. But I was sharing with Jen that I feel like on some of those relationships, and I'm going to get emotional, probably because I'm jet lagged, but because this is an important conversation, that I missed a window to have a conversation with these people that I love. I feel like I did specific things to make sure they knew I loved them over anything else, but I didn't have a conversation with them about maybe some of their questions in their journey. And if they're watching today, I hope they know I'm always willing to have that conversation. So what would you say about that? Because sometimes I feel like some of the doors have closed. Like now it's the new normal is they're not in the Mormon faith anymore, and their lifestyle looks different than it used to, and we're all okay with that now. But now we didn't have a conversation. So what would you say about how can you show up for someone that is choosing to leave the LDS faith in a way that shows love, but also how to have some of those conversations? What would you advise?
I'd say that something that's really important, that if you want to have a conversation with somebody, go internal first and check into your own energy and to your
Do it.
Yay!
Okay, there we go.
We're like giving all the love to the technology
exactly.
today. If you're wanting to have a conversation with a person, then ask yourself why. Like, what's my intention behind doing this? And there is something that I absolutely love that's a conversation between Marianne Williamson and Oprah Winfrey that was on Super Soul Sunday.
Yes,
it's
love.
4 minutes long about forgiveness. And it talks about alchemy and how if you pray for somebody else's happiness, then either they will change or you won't care and alchemy will occur. And
I love that. Did you hear that?
It's an incredible little
step.
I go back over and over again.
Yes.
And something that Marianne Williamson says that is a quote from the Course of Miracles.
Which is a fabulous course.
Which is an amazing book. Is that everything is held in promise for you by the Holy Spirit until you're ready to receive it. So if there are amends that you feel get to happen, it's going to be held in promise until you're ready to receive it. And so if we're willing to open ourselves up without having to make another person wrong, bad, ashamed, anything else, but to say, I really have a desire within me to make amends in this situation for what I didn't do before or for what I didn't feel comfortable doing before. I think it's more of an internal and then external process than it is they have to respond a certain way for me to feel okay. And if we approach it that way, then the relationship may not necessarily change, but our experience of the person will change.
Right.
And the energy around the situation will change.
And you were sharing, that is so beautiful. So I hope that this video literally becomes that invitation. Like you could literally send this video today to someone that you want to have that conversation with and say, I watched this today. I want to have a conversation. I'm afraid that I didn't say something that made you feel like you weren't as important to me that you really are. You shared with me that members of your ward, your LDS ward, that have reached out since you've left the LDS faith. What works, what doesn't work?
I love it when someone just wants to connect just for the sheer sake of connection. Not because it's just about, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, so I wanted to invite you to this thing.
This church thing.
To this church, yes, because it's always a church thing I'm getting invited to. It's not just like...
hang out.
Yeah,
dinner.
When it's hang out, I'm like, yes, because there are people that I do really miss. There are people that I've thought about visiting the ward again just so I could see them.
Well, listen, if you choose to if you choose to leave a faith community, you are changing who you sit by, hopefully on a Sunday.
Yeah.
That's a predetermined chance to see someone in the hallway. And then all of a sudden you're not seeing those people, not because you don't care about them and you didn't have things
You're just
in
not
common.
on the radar anymore.
You're just not, the schedules are not the same. I mean, church allows you to have scheduled visits, right?
It does.
And so you do feel a sense of loneliness, right? Or maybe you don't show up at, I know for us, in our family, some extended family members, when that process at the beginning was happening, they kind of pulled away. They weren't sure they were comfortable in family gatherings.
Well, it's like, how do you relate anymore?
Yes,
and
what
if you're on your own journey where you feel like you're sort of falling down a hole and you're like grasping at the branches and just hoping that something is like firm enough to hold on to.
Yes.
It can be a feeling of, where's my foundation? Where's my identity? What am I making my choices based out of now? Because before, when you've got a milestone and a goal that you're trying to reach
or a doctrine.
Yeah. When there's like certain steps that you're like, okay, I've now made this choice and then I'm going to raise my kids to hit these different milestones based on their ages or whatever they're going through. When all of that's gone and you're running a train down a track.
That's not so clearly defined.
That's not defined. And you're asking yourself, do we still get to be together as a family for eternity, even though I've made this decision? What's that going to look like? And I've gone through a divorce too. So do the kids go with this person? Do they go, you can't really even answer these things. There's not defined answers.
I think that's important because we've promised to be a little more real and uncomfortable today. And I think the truth is, especially within the Mormon faith, but I just had a conversation with a Muslim woman. They believe in a judgment day. They believe in a doctrine. I know Jewish faith, Catholic faith. Most faiths have
days of reckoning.
Right, days of reckoning, judgment, and if you're a Jewish mama or a Baptist mama or a Catholic mama and you've raised your children that way, it's because you believe at some level something about that faith that you find value in, and then that child says one day to you, I don't want to be Jewish, I want to be Mormon now, or I want to be Catholic now. There's a part of that feels like rejection.
It can. And I had the fear with my kids because they were still pretty actively going to LDS church with their father, and that they would be rejecting me.
Right.
And so I thought that could go both ways. So we had a conversation.
What was that conversation?
I just sat down with them and I said, I love you, you matter to me, and we don't have to believe the same thing.
To still love each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And this is the other unique thing. Many of you are watching from all over the world. Jen is going through this journey in a predominantly LDS community, and we were talking about that.
And my kids go to an LDS private school.
And an LDS private school.
I live walking distance from a temple.
Yes.
So I'm just right in the heart.
I mean,
right on the heart of
the
it.
frying pan
Yeah.
while this is happening. And I think if you live in another community in another part of the world that is predominantly fill in the gap anything, and you chose to leave that faith but not move out of that community,
Yeah, and
it's
being a single
it's more
mom
complicated.
who
Yes.
works and sings and speaks and all of those kinds of things
within an LDS community,
I have felt extremely unique, somewhat isolated, because I don't really know anybody that does everything that I do.
Yes,
I know some people that might coach or some people that might perform or things like that, but I don't know people that do it all. And so it's been really interesting to be
to
in
see
that
all
situation.
your worlds. So to full circle it back, your upbringing, visiting all these different religions is probably serving you now, because you had developed an emotional awareness about how to have conversations with people from all walks of life. So now you are using that probably every day.
Oh yeah.
The experience you had in going into the LDS faith, the pain and the losing your scholarship and having to move, did it feel as painful leaving the LDS faith, or?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Because I was also leaving a family simultaneously.
Family.
So like all those traditions, all of those experiences, like having the loss of all of that.
Hurt.
Oh yeah, it was. And so what I had to do was just really go back to myself and my divine source, and make everything about that, instead of about individuals, and instead of about certain bullet points of belief systems and things like that. Because I realized, like, I can get stuck on this for years.
Yes.
I can be unpacking this for years. And I knew that what I really cared about was what I was going to co-create with God moving forward. And so I didn't want to get stuck in a place of
pain from the past.
Yeah, or having arguments, or not being able to be cordial with people when I would see them. So I started working on, how can I be an encouragement to these people? Because you know what? They want to feel like they belong as much as I do.
Yes.
They're questioning their own belonging.
Yes.
They're questioning, what if we weren't good enough for her to
And now
stay?
she doesn't think Mormons are cool to hang out with, or
Yeah,
whatever.
because it's a thing that the insecurities go both ways.
Right.
Sometimes we think it's just a one-way street,
No.
and it's not.
No.
Everybody wants that safety. Everybody wants
were
that
saying
validation.
everyone wants to be heard and belong.
Yeah.
We're wired that way.
Yep, which is part of why the communal sense of religion exists in the first place.
sure,
To
for
find
sure.
a landing
A
place
community, a
for
support.
where do I belong, to have people that know you personally, that you know them personally, and you know each other's stuff.
Right.
And
they know your story, and so
Yep.
they become a part of your story because they know your story. What has been something helpful that those that are still in the LDS faith have done to help you feel valued and loved?
so something that has really been amazing is when people like Cherie
Yes.
invite me to speak at things. Somebody recently invited me to do Women at the Well in North
I
Carolina.
saw that.
And I flew out there and I said, well, I was very upfront and honest right out the gate. And I
Yes.
said, I do not represent myself as Mormon anymore. Do you still want me to come? And they said, yeah, this is actually going to be a multi-denominational thing.
Love it.
And so we had like the Soul Sister version of
Love
Women
it.
at the Well.
Love it.
Because we had several different women from all different types of faith communities in North Carolina. There were some who were LDS. There were some who were Baptist. There were some who were Evangelical Free Church. Like there was a few different types of denominations represented, which was awesome. But I love that because I've just told the truth.
Yes.
That all the things that I thought could possibly like go away. I thought, oh my gosh, will I ever be hired to sing again by LDS people? Will I be included in stuff? Will my friends who are LDS and do philanthropy work not ask me to sing at their events anymore? None of that has happened. Will they invite you to come on their LDS Facebook page and talk about it? Exactly. Right? Because what I've learned in this whole process is that key. It's so key.
We just have to have the conversation and be honest.
Well, and if you are in a place within yourself,
which you
where you are seeking to love rather than just to be loved, if you're seeking to console rather than to be consoled, if you're seeking to contribute rather than to consume, then everything that happens is going to be a reflection of that energetically. And I was amazed to see that I didn't lose clients, voice students, opportunities, recording sessions, performing opportunities. None of those things happened. The thing that was the most painful is probably leaving the family situation. But then
that would have been painful regardless of a faith issue, right?
Completely, yeah. But then everything that has been kind of left behind the vacuum has been filled
by more love. Because I will say this about Jen. I knew we don't have this long history together, right? Mm-hmm. So this was a faith exercise for both of us.
Yes, it was.
But we are so in sync. Like literally every step of the way, I could feel us both being prepared. Mm-hmm. And that's what I knew. I think Jen sees in me my desire to live in that light. Mm-hmm. And my feeling from her from the beginning was I could see that in her. Mm-hmm. And a mutual respect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I think both of us identify as women of faith.
Yes.
And we both have found ways, in small ways and big ways, to support that faith. Mm-hmm. At times where I needed Jen on a day that I wasn't feeling so great about myself.
And I've found that as I've sent out like songs that encourage me, things like that, because music is a huge part of my prayer language.
Your love language.
It's my love language for sure. And there are times that I've heard something and I've gone, oh my gosh, the following 75 friends need to hear this song, and I'll send it out to everybody.
Yes.
And it's a way to still be able to be connected with each other and to find commonality. But if I am feeling discouraged, if I find 5 or 10 people to send an encouraging note to, it's so interesting to see.
It re-engages you.
It re-engages, but they also will say, I needed this. How did you know that I needed this? And so I'm using more intuition and awareness and empathy than fear. And tapping into, we all have these common human struggles, no matter what faith we're in, no matter what family we belong to. Like, we all have these common struggles and these common pains that we just sometimes wish that somebody would reach out. And there are lots of people that are even in a really strong faith-based community who are not being acknowledged because maybe they just don't share.
Yes.
Or they're just terrified, or they're like, please, I don't want anybody to know this. But on the inside, they're like, oh my gosh, I wish somebody would reach out to me.
Yes.
And if you're in the question and in the prayer of how can I be a source of light, even in my own darkness.
Representing God,
representing love.
Yes.
And unity and tolerance. And I admit, too, I have a couple friends who I get to vent to safely.
You need to have that, right?
That it's not a public conversation.
Yes. You're not,
it's just something
you're not shaming all Mormons, but you know that's your safe person to say, I need to process this in an ugly way. I need an out loud person to be able to process this. I was hurt today, or I was offended by something, because we're human, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's key, that have that trusted to people that you can say, you're my truth person, and so you're going to honor this, and we get to have a different conversation. That may not be the conversation to have with grandma.
Right. And there are some things that I don't put out on my wall and make a public thing, because I realize that if I'm having the question, most likely a lot of other people are having the question too. Yes. But just necessarily just kind of like invite. It's like it doesn't always serve. Yeah. So rather than like looking at the right and wrong aspects of something, I go into light and heavy.
I love that.
And
that's
if
a
something
good
feels heavy, that's a really good tool.
Yeah.
If something feels heavy, if it makes my stomach kind of drop and makes me kind of like feel really low energy or drained.
Change directions.
Well, I'll first ask the question, whose is this? And I'm not looking for an answer with a person. I'm just checking in, is this mine or somebody else's?
Because if it's not yours, you don't get to control it.
No. And most of the time, a huge amount of the time, especially if you're an empathic and intuitive person, there's a lot of stuff that's not yours.
Yeah.
You're just picking up on it.
Yeah, you walk into Costco.
Walmart.
Man, right? Which we run into each other all the time.
Yes, we do.
Right?
We do.
Every time I do, I'm like, oh, good, I need a light right here in the middle of Walmart because I'm feeling the heaviness of that experience. Right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think we've gone longer than we normally do today. And that's because I feel like this conversation is crucial. And I honor Jen and her journey and her work that she's done to kind of bring some of this wisdom, because when you're unpacking it, like you said, it's complicated, it's messy. Be patient with yourself. Yes. Validate that you have these feelings as a mama or as an aunt, that you don't quite know what to do. If you're the one that's struggling with some faith questions, honor that struggle inside. And I would just say, listen, I just literally was in a mosque, okay? As a Mormon woman, listening to a beautiful Muslim teacher. And there were so many times, if I could have said it, I would have said, me too, me too, me too. As she described her faith, I wanted to shout from the rooftops, me too, me too. And at the end, it was so painful because of the area of the world I was in, I couldn't, right? But I think that's the closing thought I would like to share, is that there's so much that is the same. There's so much that is me too, me too, me too.
And
right?
You're just not alone.
You're not.
You're not alone.
And
ever.
If we can lead out with love, and that we can also find common ground.
And relationship over religion.
Relationship over religion.
Because it's the relationship that matters. That's what you're usually afraid of losing.
Yes.
If somebody feels
On
like
either
they're
side.
going a different direction, it's like, oh, are we still going to have a relationship?
Yes.
Do we still get to have a friendship? Do we still get to see each other? And I think we're more afraid of that than we are even, is the religion right or wrong?
Yes.
Because if you care about somebody and you love them and your thought is like, oh my goodness, will this person be able to go to the weddings, and will they be able to go
and in my faith,
to the different things that we all care about?
Yes, and in my faith, the people matter. So in my faith, it doesn't always look like that, right? But as President Monson used to always say, make a person to be loved more important than a problem to be solved.
Yes.
Stop assuming that this is a problem that has to be solved, and realize that at the end of the day, it's a person to be loved first and foremost. Where can people find you? If you want more Jen Light, which, listen, if we might have you back on just to sing, because we have High Five Live has musical firesides.
Oh, cool!
And
that'd be amazing.
Marge may be doing one soon, and we have Marge, right? So where can people find you and your light and love and connect with you after this video is over?
So I am kind of unique in that I don't really have a YouTube channel and things like that.
Kind of love that you don't, by the way.
I don't. I mean, people are always
everybody
like,
does have one, right?
there are people that have put songs I've recorded on YouTube.
Right.
I haven't really done any of that myself.
She's worked with major artists.
I have. It's
so
been
is
awesome.
Facebook the best way to find?
Facebook's the best way. Jennifer Nicole Marco.
Okay.
If you want to add me or follow me or whatever, I try to really put a lot of things on my wall that are uplifting and empowering, and hopefully will be an encouragement to whoever you are,
and you're honest,
wherever you're at.
You're authentic. I do love that about your posts. I think we try to share that in common in how we lead out in our posts.
Yeah. I'm not just trying to show like the highlight reel.
No,
because sometimes stuff
is messy.
Sometimes things are like
yuck.
Yeah, I went through an injury not too long ago, so I had to take some time off from the gym, which was, I learned a lot of stuff about chronic pain during that period of time. That was like, wow. I had some times laying on an ice pack on the floor.
Surrender.
Total surrender. And there's moments in that within everybody's faith. Or somebody may choose not to have a faith affiliation at all.
Yeah, sometimes you leave a faith and say, I don't think there's a God.
Yeah,
anymore.
totally.
Yeah.
And you can have those moments where you're just going, okay, is this really what it's all about?
Yes.
And what am I doing? How do I move forward? What's my purpose? And I think anybody, no matter who they are or what they affiliate with, is asking those questions.
Everyone is. That's a human question.
It's a common question.
And
so if we can be in that frequency of knowing that there is commonality.
Yes.
And that and be more united than divisive.
Yes.
What's the point of the division?
Listen, that's why I hug everyone, and I was just in an area of the world where I could have been put in jail for that, but it's because I think no one's over an abundance of love and connection. We're all kind of lacking.
Well, no man's an island,
right? For sure.
Which is why we all want to be on social media, because we're like,
For
somebody
sure.
connect with me.
For sure. And do you know what? If you've visit her page, you will catch her singing. And I think that's one of the universal languages.
For
regardless, it crosses religious bounds and ethnic boundaries. And
I love where music has taken me.
Music is a uniting force.
It so is. And there's so much good music that's out there that can be such a source of encouragement.
Yes.
That isn't afraid to say, there are times when life is just really, really challenging.
Yes. And
yet there is hope. And if there's anything that has kept me going, it is hope beyond what any human could necessarily provide. It was really returning all the stuff to sender that didn't serve, and really just sitting and asking God, how do you see me? What do you want for me? What would you have me do that's in alignment in my own personal life? And maybe nobody else understands it. But if you're in alignment, you'll know that you're in alignment, because you'll just feel that lightness and that resonance. And if God is for you, nobody can stand against you.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you, my sister, for being so brave and doing the work and helping inspire others. And thank you for those that stuck with us. It was a longer video today, but we felt like it was worth the conversation, because this is a complicated one. There's no easy, simple answers. No. We're not trying to tie a bow on something that is often difficult, but we're also trying to show that there's hope. There's a way to maneuver through these conversations. There's a way to have faith changes happen within your family and your friend groups and still maintain loving relationships. And we hope and pray that this video will be used for that. Please share it today and join us next week for another Women of Worth Wednesday.
Thank you.